it on because I'm ready to get started, but I'm missing a couple of our trustees.
First one, purchase and send it.
All right, I think it is 9:04 and the board is reconvened in open session. And just a moment, and I will, that is the wrong agenda from July. I will not do it. Well, I was looking up old information. So we're ready to consider action on closed session items. Mr. Verdeen.
Yes, Madam President, I move to appoint Janice Longmire to the position of high school associate principal.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Verdeen and a second by Mr. Rice. Do we have any discussion? I do not see anyone waiting to speak, so we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion is unanimous, passes unanimously. Now we're on to action. We have action item 7A.
Madam President, I move to adopt a resolution approving the exchange of 4.188 acres of real property on the north side of the Travis High School site for an alternative 12.981 acre site in the Harvest Green development, and to authorize the superintendent to execute the final contract and post-closing agreement.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rice and a second by Mrs. Bailey. Do we have discussion? All right, all those in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. The motion passes unanimously. Now we're ready for item 7B. Mr. Rosenthal.
I move to approve the purchase of 16.678 acres of real property located in the Harvest Green development, and to authorize the superintendent to execute the final contract and post-closing agreement, and to authorize the board president to execute infrastructure easements necessary under the post-closing agreement.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rosenthal and a second by Mr. Rice. Do we have discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Item 7C.
I move to adopt a resolution approving the exchange of 14.997 acres of real property in Sienna Plantation for an alternative 15-acre site in Sienna Plantation, and to authorize the superintendent to execute the final contract and post-closing agreement.
Second.
A motion by Mr. George and a second by Mr. Rice. Do we have discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. We're ready for 7D.
Yes, Madam President. I move to approve the purchase of 31.914 acres of real property located in Sienna Plantation, and to authorize the superintendent to execute the final contract and post-closing agreement, and to authorize the board president to execute infrastructure easements necessary under the post-closing agreement.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bailey and a second by Mr. Rice. Do we have discussion? Being none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Cleaver, for all your hard work over the last several months to organize all of this for us. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to review items from our agenda. The first one is to review the proposed construction manager agent as a method of procurement for the delivery of the 2014 bond projects. Mr. Cleaver, do you have comments on this?
Yes, ma'am. On page 17 in your board packet,
Well, actually, it might be more
I'm
like
sorry.
93.
Yeah, 93, I'm sorry, I was looking at this old.
1793.
Yep. 1793, that was a good year. Okay, on page 93, there's a fairly lengthy agenda item. It contains a lot of information, but the bottom line is that a construction manager agent is procured like a professional service. And what we would like to do is have y'all consider us going ahead and getting, putting the RFQ on the street so that we can have plenty of time to review, because I'm anticipating a lot of responses to this. Getting that on the street so that we can bring that back with a recommendation sometime in January. Our approach to this, you know, we have gone through several, we've looked at least a half a dozen different RFQ samples, from Dallas ISD all the way to, you know, the KIPP Academy. And some of them are very prescriptive, and they say, you know, the ISD wants these 14 or 15 or 25 things. And our approach is going to be a little different. We want to partner up with an outfit, with an organization who's going to assess us and be able and be willing to use our talent and our resources where we have them and where they're efficient, and then help us identify that and then plug the gaps where we're not efficient. And we don't want to, you know, buy anything twice, and we certainly don't want to purchase anything we don't need. And so because these contracts can be so complex, I mean, everything from, you know, personnel to are they going to use our facilities, you know, our computers, our desks, our office space, because there's so many services offered, the lead time on getting the contract finalized will take some time. So we would like permission to go ahead and put this on the street even in ahead of the bond. And should it pass, we would be ahead of schedule. And if it weren't to pass, we would cease the solicitation.
All right, thank you for that explanation. Do we have any questions? Mr. Rosenthal?
Are these typically large firms that you're looking at, or individual people, or how? I have known, throughout my career, I've known individuals who provide this service and also large firms that do it, and everything in between. You have a preference, or? Well, I anticipate something this large would take a good bit of manpower, so I would anticipate that a medium-sized or larger-sized firm would be capable of delivering this, or perhaps it's multiple firms. Divide up the bond package into multiple projects, and multiple firms deliver it. That's a possibility too. And do you see this as more efficient than just hiring somebody, or? I don't know that it would be more efficient, but I think in the interest of time and given the dynamics of the market, I think it would be a prudent move to get some real expertise that specifically knows this market.
Well, let me jump in on that, because we've talked a lot about this, and I think it's more efficient, because there's a lot of things we don't currently have in place that we need to have in place. And for us to try to hire, staff up, and implement a bunch of new systems and protocols, when we can hire someone for this program that brings that to the table, whether it's the monitoring systems, the technology-based systems, and then they work, like Max said, in tandem with us, and we augment each other's team, then we're building our internal capacity and developing our processes and our systems that'll be scalable as we move forward down future bond programs. So I think we should try this, go through one program with it, and then over time we may determine this is the best way to execute, because then you keep a lean staff that you can augment and expand through a contract arrangement. Or we may realize, it really works well, and it's a much more efficient model to build our own staff once all the systems are developed. But for us to go out and hire a whole new team, try to implement new software, monitoring, and just all the pieces that are going to be moving all at one time, I think we'll gain great efficiency and dramatically improve effectiveness by contracting it out.
And you said something there about building capacity amongst our existing employees. So you would expect that our employees to be learning from project management.
Right, from the firm we select, we would learn about their particular project control or project management software and how that's run. Specifically, the things I think right now, if you were to just ask me what do I need, I would need help sort of packaging the projects and developing the procurement strategy. And then talk about and figure out the project phasing plan, which comes first and when, and second and third, and so on. Definitely the project control software, and we actually, what really prompted this thought was we had eBuilder, which is a pretty high-end, nationally recognized project control software. They came in and actually came in twice and gave us our initial look, and then came back and gave us another look, and at that time they also gave us a quote for the service. And as we sat around the table and talked, it really became apparent that that's a very nice software package, but what I really need is someone to run the software package. That's a very nice thing, but there's a whole learning curve just learning that software package. So I need someone hitting the ground, knowing which buttons to hit on that software. And then the other thing I absolutely know we need to do a better job on is the reporting. And the reporting out to the board and the reporting out to the community. And with the proper software, you're able to pull a report out of that software without having to build this report each month. You can pull it out, have a great dashboard, and set it up exactly how y'all want to see and what y'all want to see. And on the interim you want to see, on the schedule you want to see it. But as far as our strengths, I don't think we'd need to pay anybody a dime to help with our purchasing documents. We have a good purchasing staff, and of course, we use our outside attorney. And then the actual AIA contracting piece, we've gone back to using AIA contracts for big construction, and we use the internal FBISD contracts for smaller construction. I think we're strong on those kind of items, but some of the programmatic stuff is what we need the help on.
I'm just curious to see what Mr. Rice has to say. I see his green button on.
I agree with Mr. Cleaver.
Right.
I have a question though to add. So with it's called a program manager? No.
Program manager, but the method of procurement, if you were to go to the law book, is construction manager agent, CMA.
Okay. And would that include the infrastructure, the technology infrastructure pieces that we are looking at possibly doing? Would that be managed by this same group, or is that a separate?
We have not talked about that. It certainly could be, but I know Long is standing up a pretty good stable of program and project managers in his own department to implement some of those things.
Okay, so it doesn't seem like this type of thing is needed for your area. Okay. All right, do we have any other questions? Mr. George?
Curiosity question. At the end, it says the program manager, CMA, is required by law to carry a minimum of $1 million in professional liability or errors and omission insurance per occurrence for protection of the owner. I mean, can you explain a little bit about it? What is the reason why we have to? That's simply an E&O.
Errors and omissions. I would really like
Mrs. Morris?
Under the statute that is applicable to program managers, construction manager agents, they're acting as a fiduciary agent of the owner. They're not constructing anything, they're not allowed to be a contractor or a subcontractor, and for that reason, you're not allowed to force them to carry performance bonds. So the legislature's response to making sure that they offered some protection to the owners with whom they were working is to make it a legal requirement that they carry malpractice insurance. And that's one of the few services anywhere in the law where you see that there's a requirement to carry that type of professional liability insurance.
So you're saying they need to carry it,
They
it's
need
not,
to-
we are not?
No.
Okay, I just.
No, the firm that you hire, that's part of the statute, they have to have at least $1 million in coverage for that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions on that one? We're good? Okay, thank you, Mr. Cleaver. Our next item is the new board policy CT local regarding capital planning. And the policy itself is on page 96 of your board book. And I liked the policy. I'll throw in something that I wondered if we, in this section, which is covered up by, where it says multi-year capital planning, I was going to suggest capital planning is an important component of the district strategic plan and an important component of good financial stewardship. Therefore, the district shall prepare for the board, shall prepare for board review and adoption, etc. Was a comment, just to reiterate the good financial stewardship portion of this policy. Mr. Rosenthal, do you have some comments?
Yes. Yes, this is much better than the original. The only thing I would say is on the review, I'm wondering if we should make that a little more frequent than every 5 years, like maybe every couple of years,
Maybe 3 years?
maybe
Okay.
2 years. I mean, it's a major deal. It's the capital plan, right?
Wait a minute, was that Mrs. Leach had just left her last board meeting without saying goodbye? Okay, good. Just checking.
She left her stuff over there, so
Okay.
she really was coming back.
Sorry, Mr. Rosenthal.
No, it's okay. No, we're talking about, the capital plan. I would think that, so we all kind of see the big picture a little more often than,
Well, does that seem, do you think that seems feasible, or is that, to what level would you be expecting review? That would be the question.
I do want to comment that one of the things that we have discussions with our TASB consultant on this, because we want, they're seeing a broader picture of the state and districts that are similar to us. And one of the things that they did mention to us, because we had originally put in review every 3 to 5 years, was that if we're really building this out for every 5 years, then when you're working on the plans that support the capital plan, like the facilities master plan and the other plans, those are kind of the moving parts that will be coming to you for review. And so their only concern was if we put in the 3 to 5 years, are we really building a solid plan for 5 years? Because I think that was the point of having a plan for 5 years. That was one of the comments that was made to me.
Well, I think what I want to understand is the intent of this section, because my answer to that is we're going to be reviewing it every year. I mean, just like we're going to be looking at our demographic data, we're going to be
Right.
rolling that all the way through the process. So, whether we do it every 1 year, 2 year, 5 year. So I'm trying to think of what the intent of what the board would want to adopt in policy related to that.
Well, I think we just don't want the whole thing put on the bookshelf and forgotten about. That's what our intent is. So if you put a timeline in that's in somebody's to-do list and it cycles up, time's expired, and it's time to look at it, versus it just being put off for one reason or another, or, moved down the priority list.
I guess maybe what this does does it kind of force you to have Jacobs come in every 5 years? Is that, you can read it that way?
Well, I would say
Reassess it.
it forces us to have I would say a comprehensive, but I think if that's the intent, I would change the words
that, right.
to say the district will undergo a comprehensive planning process or something in, every 5 years.
Is that what we want to say?
I mean, do we want to do a review annually based on current demographics and, growth of the district? and kind of a comprehensive community-engaged process, because we're not, it's kind of what we did on the demographic review in the most recently adopted policy. We're not going to have the community in on all of these issues if we decide we're going to bring portables in. But if we will realize we're going to do boundaries or things that impact the community, then we're going to bring the community in. So we're going to review the data, and if everything's on track and we're moving ahead, then there's no big community engagement or board action required. It's simply, here it is, board, here's an update, probably even in a board update on a Friday packet, here's your updated information.
I think that makes a good point, because when we look at, so when I read this and looked and thought about facilities planning and thought about the process we just went through, I think 5 years probably sounds about right to go through that entire process and doing the studies again. However, we did discuss reviewing the facilities plan itself annually to make sure that it's up to date and it is tracking like we thought it was going to track. So that's, what you said, splitting it out kind of in two.
So maybe what's bothering us is the language in here, the district shall provide, what we mean to say is the district shall provide an updated capital plan
Every 5 years.
every 5 years. The district shall review the existing plan
Annual basis.
annually,
Right. Yeah.
separating it out
That's
into
good.
2 sentences. See a lot of nodding.
Yeah, sounds good.
Mrs. Rincon, did you?
Yeah, I kind of see that because I see facilities planning and capital plan as two different things.
And that's what I-
Facilities is looking annually or
It's
every 2 years to make sure our facilities are being ran efficiently, utilizing it. And that kind of ties more back into the title of the policy, which is facility plan. And then our capital plan kind of feeds the facility plan, right?
And I think that goes back to the
No,
work that...
Facilities feeds capital.
Right, those are the supportive plans that's what I mean, those are the moving parts, those
Yeah.
supportive plans, the facilities plan, the safety and security, and then your technology master plan.
That's
So
all,
maybe the
you said that.
title of the,
Yeah.
title of the policy needs to change up.
That's what I was thinking,
Well, that's
facility
the only thing
planning.
that's a TASB, that's how they code it, is facilities planning. And we actually worked with TASB over several reviews of several districts, probably 17 to 20, and this was the policy that best fit what the board was looking for. So we did look at that.
Okay,
So was our
So-
purpose just to make sure we always have a facility plan, because we never had?
capital plan, yes.
Okay.
And is there some place, sorry, I keep talking, does somebody else have something to say? Is there some place where these facilities master plan, technology master plan, someplace where those are defined as to what they are?
So what our intent is to work with the board through this, and once the board has approved a policy that they feel comfortable with, then to go into actually making the administrative regulations that coincide with this policy, where we will better define those plans and also the process that will be used, similar to what we just went through with Beth Martinez on FC regulations, which was built after the board worked on FC local, and then we would do this as well, in the same manner.
Okay, that sounds good. And my last question was, this is a non-vetted question, but I'll say it anyway. So here's my question. Should there be a curriculum and instruction master plan? When we say we've got facilities master plan, we have technology master plan, we have safety and security master plan, and look at big chunks of our organization, would there be a curriculum and instruction master plan? You don't necessarily have to answer that, but it just caused me to think.
I think the audit provides, because it was a deficiency audit, it provides a framework, a plan, if you will, of deficiencies for us to address. I think that there are some other internal needs that we see that we need to provide you plans toward progress. All of those need to be part of our intent to strategically meet the needs of all of our learners. And I don't think that's an unrealistic expectation for us to provide you with a more comprehensive plan, the audit being one part of those, and some other, for example, the state's also provided House Bill 5. Well, that's new. You put that with the deficiency audit. We also know that we need to retool, if you will, 504 and RTI for a more robust and consistent implementation. Well, those are some internal needs we've discovered.
And so I guess what I would say is, you know, we can come at it from a deficit. We can fix things, but we need to get ahead of it to a place where we're looking in a visionary way. And I think we've talked about that before, but it just came to my attention when I read those, and I'm like, okay, why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this for the kids, and that starts with curriculum instruction, which ties into technology, which ties into facilities, because all these things have to tie together. So it seems that when we're doing facilities planning, we need to consider curriculum instruction, because that's what we do. That's why we're here.
I think Alice in Wonderland has the quote for that. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
Great, good point. So we need to keep in mind where we're going. Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments on this
Yes.
policy, Mr. Rosenthal?
I'd just like to clarify, try to summarize what we've been talking about here. So, to me, what I heard is, you know, when we talked about this 5-year, we're talking about actually doing another major facility assessment. You know, that's when I brought up the Jacobs, you know, like a Jacobs engineering study. So that would be under identifying needs. So maybe that's where that, you know, the district, every 5 years, the district shall identify needs, you know, through a master study.
Well, I guess my response to that initially, without thinking it through completely, would be, I don't know that we need Jacobs to spend $1 million.
Yeah, I'm not saying $1 million.
Because now that we've got maps, our goal should be to keep that maintained with some accountability. But I do think just kind of the every 5-year comprehensive look. Now, I can see what you're saying about under the needs assessment, that would be part of that 5-year, you know, kind of retooling of the plan.
Right. Whereas the review takes place on an annual basis where, okay, we've done all this stuff, like we said we were going to do, and here's the new demographics, and here's some new challenges out there with, you know, feeders or zoning or whatever.
I think the section on identifying needs implies all of this goes into developing the plan whenever you do it, or whenever you review it. And so I think the review section simply indicates you're going to review it annually, and you're going to update it every 5 years.
All right.
We need to think about this a little more before we have till next week anyway, but.
Right, I think you can make the last section into 2 sentences, and then I would suggest strengthening the financial part of it in the capital planning set, because that's a priority. Were there other changes, or would it, changing some of the section names, would that help you, Dave? Or would that clarify it for you?
No, I just want to make sure that, you know, we're on the same page, that, you know, like, yeah, and I guess I brought up Jacobs, but yeah, you're right, we don't need to go spend $1.7 million or whatever it was, $1.3 million every 5 years, just for the sake of saying we're doing it.
All right, Mrs. Bailey has a question, so Mrs. Bailey, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, I guess I was reading this today, and I got more confused, actually. I always just thought facility planning, you know, Jacobs provided a base for us to move forward, because this district has never had a facility plan. So I just thought what we want to do is keep monitoring that plan. And Max, you tell me if you're agreeing or not. And that's kind of what I had in mind for the policy, is I mean, questions I always get asked in the community is, what are you doing about this? What are you doing about that facility? I think we're always doing some oversight on that. So like I'm with Dave here, the community engagement process, does that have to be in here?
Well, I was just kind of wondering how some of this overlaps with that, I believe it's FCR that we're currently looking at?
The procedure, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And I don't have it with me. I was just thinking
I know,
through that.
yeah.
But yes, I do agree with you about maintaining the MAPS database, and that's why I think we've moved it over to the Design and Construction Department, so we can have a dedicated professional on it.
What does everybody think about the community engagement process within this policy?
I think where it originally came from is, several months ago when bond stuff started coming up, we had to do what we did for the bond resolution, for our resolution, to kind of limit the excess spending to facilities. But I guess I had thought that what we wanted originally to do was put something in here to saying that if there's a major change in the capital plan or something, that we would go out to the community and say, okay, we know we said we were going to do this, CTE building or center, but we don't want to do that now. We're going to do something like this instead. Just, again, the idea was, what was in my mind is so that this excess money wasn't going to go fund another global science center around the corner here. And that's where I was coming from when I originally kind of suggested something like this, and because that is a building, and so technically you can use excess bond money for it. So, the idea was to get input on that, like, is this really needed, and get other people's ideas.
Mr. Rice?
Well, I think that I would be in favor of getting community engagement, and especially when it comes to what we're talking about here and having it in the policy. I agree with Mr. Rosenthal. I think that getting community engagement helps us make sure that the community has a voice in that, and they provide input, and that, I think, leads to better policy or better decisions on our part.
And maybe what's throwing us for a loop is just calling this facilities planning when it really is capital planning. So if TASB makes us call it facilities planning and we just know that it's capital planning, I don't understand why we can't call it what we want to call it.
Well, they code these, and so they have their
That's
own...
over my head.
Because they're looking at all the districts within, but, I will gladly make another phone call tomorrow and talk about it with them, and...
Can you give me some other examples of school districts so I can just look at theirs?
And I don't have my notebook with me, but I can definitely share that information with Dr. Dupree and like that.
Mrs. Tossan, do you have a question or comment?
I have a few, and you just made one of them, because that's what I was going to ask, is if we could change, because really what this policy is about is not what we're naming it.
Even on the agenda, it says regarding capital planning, but
especially in the context of the way we have done our facilities planning. So that was the first point I was going to make. And then my second point is that, and when we have the needs assessment section here, identifying needs, we do list the facilities master plan, the technology master plan, the safety and security master plan, but I'm wondering, as I was reading through it, when we say, when identifying needs, attention shall be given to the following items, and it popped into my mind that perhaps we should be including technology and safety and security needs in that list as well. As we're
looking, because I'm lost.
Under identifying needs, and it says, when identifying needs, attention shall be given to the following items, and we talk about capital assets that require repair and infrastructure and facility improvements needed to support student achievement. And I don't know, that just jumped out to me that perhaps we should be including.
Oh, it is, in the first paragraph. It's technology master plan and safety and security master plan.
I know, I just said that. So, but when we go down, we talk about the master plans, as we do the facilities master plan. But then we have a separate section where we break out specific things. And when you're drafting policy or contracts, you usually have a general section, and then you might go down and be more specific. So
you could make a bullet that says existing master plans or something like that, or...
Well, let me hear what I think I hear you saying, and maybe I'm wrong. I hear you identifying these bullets, capital assets and infrastructure, with facilities.
Well, yes.
But really, this refers to capital assets that could be technologies, any capital asset. It could be our infrastructure and technology, it could be a building issue. I mean, see, that's where the top, again, confuses the issue, because it leads you to think it's facilities, but in the context of the policy, capital assets and infrastructure and facility improvements that could be related to safety and security or technology. Either of those are broad enough to encompass all of that.
Okay, and that's fine, and that's really the point I was trying to make, is that it gets very confusing. When we name it one thing and we really mean something else, then it just gets a little bit confusing, first of all. And second of all, when you have the general paragraph above, but then you're breaking things out more specifically, just in my mind, those were the more specific items that were coming. It's fine with me to leave it out. I just wanted to kind of make that point of clarification.
So you would add bullets there?
I would be more clear that, capital assets is a generic term that can include a lot of things. Infrastructure and facility improvements needed to support student achievement is pretty broad, but it just, in the context of what we're calling it, it seemed like it was more facilities related and less technology, safety and security related. And my other point under the bullets is that I think community needs is very vague. Maybe we should define that, community specified needs or items identified by the, I don't know, what does community needs mean?
Here's what I'm wondering, because this is kind of that bridge. One thing we perpetually battle is what is procedure and what's policy.
Right.
I mean, if you could almost truncate some of this and not put that in there, but be much more broad in procedure.
Right.
To
well, especially
elaborate.
community needs, because we could have, what some members of the community may see as a community need, other members of the community may not see as a community need. So I see that as a very vague term. And then we have community engagement, and then the community that is engaged can come and say, well, we identified this as a need, so why aren't you...
According to your policy, it's in there, yeah.
Yeah.
So really, you could truncate this after where it says data should be used to identify present and future needs.
That's what I
that
would
will
do.
require capital infrastructure, equipment, or facilities.
I would take it out.
And then just take all of that out.
Yeah, because I think it gets confusing when...
Good, and then put that part in the procedure. Or-
Yeah.
In a much more detailed way.
That would be my thought, my recommendation.
How does everyone feel about that?
I agree with that. That sounds good.
Okay,
You good?
that is all.
Okay.
I do want to share that in speaking with the TASB consultant, because we have had several conversations in working on this. One of the things that she shared was we have a very innovative board. Because
Thank you.
He did.
Yay, thank you, Ms. Rincon.
Because there's not anything that someone else
say that
has
again?
already...
And by that, she means we have a board that's actually doing their job, providing proper oversight.
Excellent. All right.
in
So,
governance.
I mean that, she meant that as a compliment and said, wow, your board always trumps us. We have to figure out things all the time. And, well, good.
Excellent. We are the pace setter of school boards in Texas, and she's going to,
So
people are going to be calling us and saying, now, how did you do
the
that?
capital planning, but for now, all they had was facilities planning.
Okay, well, why don't you suggest that it really is capital planning, because facilities planning is just too narrow in this world, right, this day and age.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
for working on that
much.
for us so hard.
All right, are we good with that one? And we're moving on now to our next packet of TASB updates. These were all revisions, and then there was one new policy having to do with information, request for information.
So most of the revisions are pretty minor compared to the past updates that we've had. The one that we added that wasn't in Update 100 was the first one, which is CAA local, and that has to do with the fact that when we talk about our ethics hotline in policy, we previously had that the anonymous complaints would be sent to legal and to the internal audit department. And given that we don't have an internal audit department, we needed to catch up with where we are in practice. And right now, those go to legal and the Chief Officer of Human Resources. So that was the only change in that one. And with regard to the other changes, I gave specific information, but if you have any questions or...
Well, I had one question, but maybe others have. I'm doing a lot of talking. Does anybody have questions? All right, I'll just keep talking. I've had coffee now, so I'm really revved up. In the CAA local,
Yes, ma'am.
you mentioned an ethics hotline. You gave the phone number for the Crime Stoppers phone number, but there was no, I don't know where to find the ethics hotline number.
Well, right now, our current vendor is the Lighthouse vendor. I don't know if you want to be specific about that. We didn't have the name in there previously, so I didn't.
Well, I don't know that we want to put the vendor in there, but how would the person know where to get the phone number for the ethics hotline?
That is on the website.
Okay, so you just search ethics?
It's
I'll try that
under-
right now. Will it work?
You know, I did look it up when I did do this, so I think you can.
I'm sending a lifeline right now to Mrs. Bailey. That's how she rolls. She's
That's how I
gonna-
roll.
Good. Okay, well, I just wondered that, because the Crime Stoppers number was there.
My
but
only
this wasn't.
concern is that if we change vendors, then we'll be back.
And I'm not suggesting it, I just would like, if a person is having an ethics problem and they go to the policy, what do I do? And it just says, call the ethics hotline, and they don't know where that is or how to find it.
Found on the website.
Yeah, maybe we just add a phrase that the number is found on the website or something, so that it's clear where a person would look for it. It did not come up. Uh-oh, what did you search?
I did ethics.
You searched ethics hotline. Okay, well, maybe we can work on that in the back room. Meanwhile, do we have any other questions on the policies?
I just have one comment on the same one, the CAA local, where it says financial controls and oversight, and maybe this is not the right place to put it, given that heading, but it says each supervisor shall set an example of honest and ethical behavior. I thought perhaps we should include the board in that, in a statement such as that. I don't see it anywhere in here. I'm not sure that it goes there, and it says for his or her employees, but I just thought perhaps the board might want to be included in that.
Well, the opening sentence says all trustees, employees, vendors, I mean, the boards, it's very all-encompassing. So in effect, the board is my supervisor.
Okay.
So I guess, you could take it that broadly.
You're not,
Yeah, I read it.
you're
It's all
our
trustees.
employee, I guess.
And when you search for ethics on the website, your picture comes up.
Excellent.
So does Jones. So does Grass.
literally?
AP, Jason, me, Dave, we're not ethical.
Are you serious? You just did that search?
But back to conversation, what is it called on the website? I think that's where we're hung up on that policy. Is it called the ethics hotline or something else?
It's ethics reporting under the staff resources.
Ethics recording.
Reporting. But it's Lighthouse is the particular vendor.
Okay, but it's only in the staff section?
Yes.
So that doesn't work for the community then, or the trustees?
Although I do believe that we have community use it, but we can definitely look to see how we make it more available.
Okay, I'm just wondering, because if it's in the staff section, then we can't access it.
Right.
No, you can access it, it's on the website.
No, on the website.
But your point is taken is that we needed to make sure it's there for anyone.
Use the keywords.
it's not behind the
Can you change
firewall.
keywords?
Okay.
Use a keyword.
ethics, what was the key word, Nancy?
Reporting.
Mrs. Porter?
Ethics reporting.
Ethics reporting.
Ethics reporting. Can you, if somebody types in ethics, when you do the keyword, that should come up underneath it. Does that make sense?
Kristen just found it.
Okay.
We'll work on it.
All right. Anything else on these policies? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Rincon. All right, on to item D, which is the electrical short and repair at Willow Ridge High School. We had a lot of information about that. That was an emergency repair. It was even pointed out to us in our presentation earlier today. Trying to get to the right page. 120. Yeah, yes. Any questions on that?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Mr. Cleaver, why are we not replacing the bus bars? Why are we replacing it with conduit and wire?
The contractor and our design and construction department, our MEP coordinator, worked out the same situation at Austin, I believe Austin High School, a couple of years ago, maybe last year, and they seem to agree that this is a better way than replacing the bus bar.
It happened at Austin also?
That's what I was told, yes, sir.
So is that about a 3,000 amp service? I'm just wondering why the conduit and wire is better. It's coming off the pad mount transformer.
That's correct, off the top of it.
It got rusted out?
Yes, sir, it just rusted out and shorted and burned through the bottom.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. The next section is the minutes. Do we have any questions on the minutes or changes, Mrs. Kaiser, on the minutes from all of the meetings in September and for the first meeting in October, which was just last week? All right, moving on, and keep it going here. Donations exceeding $10,000 on page 161. Do we have any questions on that? All right. Next item is the proposed agreement between Avid and Fort Bend ISD in collaboration with Rice and the College Board. Have any questions on this item? Mr. George, do you have a question?
See, I guess I'm trying to understand, what is the purpose? I believe it is, bridging the gap, the college readiness program. What is the purpose of this AVID program?
Purpose of AVID program or the purpose of this agreement? Yeah, okay.
The AVID program is a program that really reaches out to first-generation prospective college attendees. It is a program that gives students study skills and college promotion, encouragement with students. For example, they may take college visits. They may have students come and talk to them about college experiences. They'll learn at different study skills, and it's a program specifically designed for students who might not otherwise see that as attainable. It shows them, yes, you can do this, this is how to do it, this is how to access it, and that's the basis of the program.
That also address the ELA students, like foreign students coming into our country, address their need? I don't know, I'm
it's not a second language learner program, but I think that any student who falls into that criteria is eligible to participate. We don't have it in every school. For example, we wouldn't have a large number of students perhaps at Clements. I don't think Clements has an AVID program. But it's a very robust program at Willow Ridge.
Yeah, I understood the basic concept of it because at TASB conference, I attended their breakout session. And I thought it was very interesting and...
Very successful program.
Okay, so they had a very good presentation and I was in that class. So I was trying to learn more about what do you feel and our success ratio with that program. So you all feel it's absolutely a good program too, right?
Yes, sir, and I believe the principals would tell you it's a very valuable program. Not just for the attaining college entry and so forth, but because of the study skills and support that it gives students while they're in school here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Hill. Moving on now to item H, which is the affiliation agreement between Memorial Hermann Southwest and Fort Bend ISD. Do we have any questions on that? Mrs. Bailey has a question.
On the Gifted and Talented Mentorship Program, is that at all of our high schools? In other words, I want to make sure we have equal access to this. I would like all of our high schools to participate, not just one.
I do believe so, but I will double check on that and make sure I get you information tomorrow. But I think it is, because it should be any child that's identified that, chooses to use that program.
That they go in, so the the students that come into that program, do they apply for this? Do the students apply for this program?
Yes, they do.
So are we making sure at every high school we are promoting this? I just know we have some problems, one or two high schools, and then it seems like the rest of the high schools kind of lose their gifted kids. I've never heard of this. So are we getting the word out to our students about this program?
I believe so through Jeanette Spain's office, but I can get more detailed information for you about exactly how that's being communicated, because I would not want to...
I can maybe add something. I think identified gifted and talented children are sent a letter through the United States Postal Service, which may or may not be.
What year?
I believe it comes to them in the middle of their sophomore year and the middle of their junior year. And then there's an informational held at the annex, and in January, let's say, roughly. You'd have to get more information, but that's basically what happens.
Okay. I guess my...
The children apply, then the kids apply to it.
Okay. I guess my concern is just being identified as gifted. As we know, a lot of our high schools and a lot of our communities don't do it, so I'd like to look at the demographics that are identified GT and make sure we are looking at our at-risk kids. It doesn't seem like we recruit from certain high schools, elementary schools, middle schools, except for a few token high schools. So I would like to reach out to those campuses for that.
Ms. Bailey, this will actually be part of our broader program evaluation we're going to do next year. We're going to study, now this is not this school year, we're going to start it next year. We're going to study every aspect of gifted and talented, all the way through from identification, from elementary, all the way through the GT mentorship program and how we engage students, how we identify students, how we serve students, all aspects. And so this will definitely be something that will be part of that.
I think that would be great right now, because we only have, it's not really pushed too much in just a few of our elementary schools.
We do have some initiatives to reach students of poverty and students that tend to be less identified. There are some other options and ways to get into GT that they're using now through VISTA's program, identification. We can certainly get you some more information on some of those details that are already in place. And yes, we'll definitely be studying more. Lots more work to do.
Yeah, I mean, I like the affiliation agreement, it's just, I didn't like the gifted and talented mentorship program tied to it. So that's kind of really shouted to me. Yeah, just through experience as a parent.
I would echo that. I had the same, so I had some of the same questions, and I know we do have the VISTAS program, so my question was going to be, are the kids in that program also being considered for this? Or do you have to be GT identified? Because I know those in the VISTAS program are not required to take the GT test and be identified. They're just put in the program by selection through teacher. So are they also in consideration for this?
I do not know the answer to that. Do you know the answer to that?
I don't know
100% sure.
the answer to that,
By the time we get this sold.
I'm not going to talk about something I don't know about, but I will tell you something I do know about, and that is that I was a Title I principal for 13 years in a majority minority high school with a very high minority GT identification, and this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And next year, when we are looking deeply into that program, you can guarantee that, or I can guarantee you that we will do a deep dive on it. Because what happens, Ms. Bailey, is it's very difficult when students get older to be identified. It's more difficult. So what we have to do is find them when they're younger. And there is a difference in being gifted and having an enriching home environment. And sometimes the lack of some of those enriching experiences clouds what is a real gifted youngster. And we just have to train people and have methods to get to that early. And we will. And we will.
I would echo that I like the program as well, and I think it would be great to have, like you said, if we have other opportunities for kids that might not be identified to have similar mentorship opportunities. I think that would be great. So, thank you.
Mr. George?
First of all, I like to get more information on all these questions. And I strongly believe in internship programs and its values, and I have personally experienced with my children. So, and I think, I don't know how expanded this program, I definitely support expanding more students being part of it, but at the same time, I believe, those who qualify to these programs should be part of that. And if that is GT students, they should be GT student. And I believe making it all across available for anybody and everybody, I don't know how valuable it is for them. I believe in children should qualify for things, that's where the value come in place.
Yes.
That's my feeling.
Yes.
So I like to know the details of, how many students are participating and what is the future plans with this. And I 100% agree with, because first-hand experience for children is huge, and I have seen it personally. Thank you for that information. Sure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. George. Do you have a comment? Mr.
I
Brady?
did. I was going to say, I like the idea of having this open to not just gifted and talented, but regular ed students. I was part of a program at the hospital for 10 years, and probably one of the best experiences of my life. And it really opened my eyes up to not only just what a doctor or whoever does every day, but just real life experiences, which to me is priceless. So although I know you can't open this up to any and everybody, but having the opportunity for students that may provide a life experience, not just a job experience, but just learning about life, and I think that would be something to explore, so.
All right, that's kind of a neat idea. Similar to how, when you, a lot of times you get your college degree, you have an internship as part of that program. Maybe there's an avenue of that can be, through business partnerships, that can be done in our community with our high school graduates. It's a good idea.
Yeah, and I was going to add that I think we have to be careful. While obviously we have to have criteria and standards and kids have to qualify, I think we have to be careful of making the only qualifying factor grades. Because, there are lots of kids, and that's probably what primarily concerned me about the GT, is that there are lots of kids that may have an interest and do very, very well with something like this, and it could really boost what they could do post-secondary. And if we limit it to only those that have a certain GPA or have certain grades, then I think we're leaving out an entire segment of our population that could benefit from having the experience, which is really the point of it.
Through CTE and the new avenues with endorsements in House Bill 5 and community partnerships that are written into that, I suspect that there will be more opportunities for a broader range of students to have those experiences.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Hill and Dr. Whitbeck. All right, we're ready to move on to item I, which is the PDOS appraiser list, the additions to that. Do we have any questions on that item? All right, then the last item is item J, which is the delegate and the alternate to the Houston-Galveston Area Council. So I have been the delegate this last year, and it starts with a phone call usually in December, and then there's some meetings in the spring. And so
Do we designate you again, or?
I just heard Ms. Hassan.
And I second that.
Kristen, it's yours.
All right, so who would like to be the alternate?
Did you say you wanted it?
Sure.
Dave Rosenthal's the alternate.
Yeah, the meetings are at like 10 o'clock on Tuesdays. So Mrs. Bailey can't do it because it conflicts with the SHAC meetings usually, or sometimes. So I could be the alternate.
Mr. Rice looked like he might want to be the alternate.
No. No.
I can be the alternate if you'll do the, okay, KP can be the alternate, good idea.
Thank you, KP.
All right. Go to another meeting, it's really fun. First, you have to participate in a conference call in December, though. I'll tell you about it. Okay, do we have anything else? Do we have any audience requests to speak? Okay, well then, the last thing I'd like to say is thank you very much to Michelle Leach for several years of patience in explaining procurement to all of us. We appreciate you very much, and we're going to miss you, so thank you so much. Very good, and do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I asked them, there are no audience items.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Ms. Hassan, and second by Mr. George. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye.